Welcome, everybody, to the MTG Rebellion Rebelcast. I believe this is episode number 16. And today we're going to cover the announcements that happened at GenCon just recently. Of course, the history, as you know, is that 30 years ago, Magic the Gathering was announced as a game at GenCon. And so now, in the 30th anniversary, they are announcing their release schedule for the next couple of years, what it means in paper, and also a lot of huge announcements for Arena, for digital Magic, which I think is big news for all of us here who create content for Arena using the Arena platform, but are also paper enthusiasts. So today I've got with us John Ramos MTG, myself, Max Damage on Nines. We've also got Darth Rictus from the Dark Stream with us today to help us cover, summarize, but also go into a little bit of the nuance and details of the announcements. So I want to start by saying I'm very excited to be able to talk about this. Some of these changes are a long time coming. Some of these promises are a long time coming. We're getting a timeline for Pioneer. That's my biggest thing I want to react to. But I'll let the Dark Stream take it away, not to steal too much thunder. What do we have to look forward to, really in particular with Arena, because it matters to all of us here? What's going on?
I think there are three things that I really like. The first is the duplicate protection coming in. That's going to be lovely. I have been so irritated with there's like that OCD element once you start dumping too much money into Arena and you want to just have everything, except that if you're a completionist, all of a sudden you have to get like 12 copies of a card, and sometimes that card's a rare, and then you just die a little inside. So I'm happy that the duplicate protection's coming. That's honestly one of my favorite things about this new system that they're implementing. But if we go over to the second of the points, the fact that they're going into a unified ecosystem has so much potential. It has so much potential. Like they're going to start with just a rewarding mastery pass experience with F&M, and I think that's a really smart way to break in that system. And it's low stakes. If a QR code doesn't work, who gives a shit? But eventually, imagine a scenario where you can queue in paper for these online events because they are setting up to be able to do that if they want to in the future. And I think that's really interesting that we could have paper events that queue you for online tournaments too, instead of just vice versa. So that's the second thing I really like about this. The third, of course, as we know, is that Pioneer Masters is coming in, and so is that Modern Horizons 3, which means they are going to push this back into Horizons event, like into Modern eventually, and we do get Pioneer by the end of 2024, it looks like. So those are the three things I'm most
Okay.
excited about, Max.
Quick question on that. I was unclear, and maybe some of the audience members are as unclear as me. Modern Horizons having some overlap in Arena, is that going to affect Historic? How is that going to work?
I think immediately it will affect historic, and eventually we will get deeper, older formats, and that's kind of a prelude to saying yes, we are eventually going to push back so you can play modern on arena. We get it; it's a pro tour format, much like Pioneer. You want to be able to do these things, so that's lovely. I love that they're going that route.
I
I
just
think I think that's great too. I really hope, honestly, that they split into Historic and then Modern, because I know Historic is supposed to be sort of the modern equivalent. Maybe not really. It's never been officially been said, but it's kind of understood that it sort of is. But then you have Alchemy on top of it, which really has split the fan base. Go ahead, John Ramos. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna point out that they said during the stream, one of the devs, Mario didn't say it, but the arena dev, the executive producer, I can't think of his name for the life of me right now, but he specifically said that they're not trying, or I want to get the wording right, but I know I'm gonna paraphrase this, but basically saying that they're not trying, or this doesn't mean that modern is coming to arena. They very specifically put that line in there. Now, if you want to discuss it, that's fine. But in my opinion, that they have to say that, um, so that you don't tank the value of MTGO. That's just an opinion. It's not like something, but they did. But one of the producers did say that this is not saying that they're putting modern onto arena.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I love that. We're here to give you the information. MTG Rebellion. That's what we do. Is we try to stay up to date. Thank you for that, John Ramos. Okay, so that makes sense. That not only do they have to say that, but I actually kind of believe it. They might try to salvage a lot of what Historic is trying to do. But I'm excited for all those announcements too. Is there anything else from the arena-based announcements or the release schedule that you wanted to point out, Darth Rictus?
I'm curious with this Cons of Tarkir being released as a full set, what they're going to allow into Explore. I'm very curious what they're gonna do with this. You know what I mean? Because if I'm remembering correctly, Cons of Tarkir, Ramos, correct me if I'm wrong, it has fetches, right?
That is correct. All of them.
So so if they let it into Explorer, they're either differentiating it from Pioneer definitively, or they are saying Pioneer's getting fetches potentially, which I don't think was the goal. I thought the goal of Pioneer is no fetches because they don't want to waste all that time shuffling, and that was a huge issue, and that's part of why Pioneer came to be, was because this paper magic matches, people were just shuffling, 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 and they did a law of averages, and it was like over 5 minutes of the match is spent just shuffling the damn cards. So they were like, "All right, let's see if we can mitigate that with a new format that doesn't involve fetches." And that was part of the point of Pioneer. So I'm curious how they implement the Cons of Tarkir set when it comes out.
It's probably solved. They consider it a solved issue by the fact that arena is just a very quick shuffle. So they're like, okay, well that eliminates that issue. So let's bring fetches into Explorer and differentiate it from Pioneer. It might be a clever move. We'll see how it gets executed, how the fan base is receptive to it or not.
I mean,
Um,
it definitely makes that latest anthology with Deathrite Shaman seem like a much smarter buy now. If we get
yeah,
fetches, Deathrite turns
yeah,
cracked again, you know?
yeah. John Ramos, you got something to say?
So just see, I don't understand this because they they allow Deathrite Shaman to be an historic. It's literally unplayable. And um there's if anybody's in the main historic Discord, there's specifically discourse in there because they're not sure. And I wish Watsy would just say it. Because they really did it with Bobble when they did it, but I think they're gonna wait until the official release or the official spoiler of Tarkir. But I wish they would just say it, much like they did with Bobble. If the fetches are gonna be legal and historic, just say it because it really is gonna change the format a lot, just allowing the fetches to be in. And Pioneer specifically was made and the fetches were automatically banned. I know they cited that as a reason, but the another reason also was they wanted to differentiate Pioneer from Modern, and Modern is a place that you can go and play fetches and all the older formats, and they didn't want Pioneer to be that. That's why they banned them. And also, Deathrite Shaman is a busted magic card. So, but I really wish they would just say it. Like, if they're gonna be legal and historic, just say it. And if they're not, just pre-ban them now so that we just get the idea that hey, we're not getting these instead of waiting until the last minute like they did with Ragavan. So just
Well, and to be clear, Deathrite Shaman's not just in Historic, it's in Explorer. So if Cons comes in for Explorer, then Deathrite Shaman will be the best one drop in Explorer all of a sudden. Like cracked elves are going to be a thing. And Jund may turn into an actual deck because you have Deathrite Shaman. Like it'll be interesting because it's unplayable without fetches, but with fetches, it's a cracked Llanowar elf. So everyone will play it.
yep.
Like Rakdos would play it. There's no reason Rakdos can't. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
God,
Rakdos
Yeah,
just
no,
gets
that's
better.
it. Yeah.
Turn 2 Fable will be a fucking thing if they don't ban it. You know what I
like
mean?
they need that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
imagine
I don't
turn 2 Fable on the play. That's not gonna be fun to play against.
yeah.
Let's transition really quickly. I know we don't have a ton of time today, but we want to condense this episode, get a lot of information out at once. What we all witnessed the pizza box today or played in it. Darth Rictus, what did you come away with in terms of don't give away too many meta shifts. We might update the state of the meta, but what did we see today from that, especially from the likes of Rakdos, from Mono Green, from Lotus combo? What's going on? What did we see today?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, shout out to Darth Zero for making the top 8. He'll be playing that shortly with his build on Mono Green Devotion, which has a lot of spice. I think I'll just unleash a little bit of spice here. If you don't know what Ratchet Bomb is, look at that card, realize that it takes down Timer Creativity, and it's pretty fucking good against Sakdos. And understand that that card can go in literally any deck sideboard. and that is how Mono Green Devo has been absolutely ranching Temur creativity in our testing and today. So expect it. That's the spice this week is that Ratchet Bomb beats creativity and Green Devo is really fucking good right now.
Yeah, who would have thunk? Actually, us. We talked about recently on the Explorer Week 2 State of the Meta how we need to provide some kind of at least wishboard guide for Mono Green Devotion. And I don't know. Well, just pay attention. Subscribe to our channel over on YouTube, MTG Rebellion, and see what comes down the pipelines. We might have something for you, maybe.
And to
But
be fair, it's going to be really difficult because we have the bans coming up tomorrow. So like this could all shift literally tomorrow morning.
yeah, that's why I threw that maybe in there because oh my gosh, I predicted and I still feel like it's going to be a devotion ban. Whether it's Nykthos or Karn, I'm not sure. Probably Karn, but we'll see. We'll see.
I defend the Karn.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that discourse this week. Speaking of discourse, a lot of discourse is going to be created this week around. I haven't looked today. Otherwise, that's probably why I'm still in a good mood. Is I haven't looked today at all. To what is it called now? X. They should have named it Y.
Oh God. Yes, yes, yes. Twitter, X, Facebook Meta, everybody's like, guys, you can try and change the name, but like we're not we're still gonna call it that. Although Facebook you managed to get renamed Boomer Book by all the Zoomers, so backfired.
So I say they should have named it Y because ICP just made a really clever joke this week that Elon Musk, if he was cool, could have capitalized on calling it a yeet.
I figured you were calling it Y because why bother? Like
That
just a
too.
Y for you
It's an
know?
onion. It's an onion. It's got layers.
It's at least 3 entendres, right? We'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But looking here
Oh.
at the pizza box for Explorer and the results that, are currently rolling through, it looks like the top 8 is gonna have at least let's see, the undefeated player is Lotus Field. Uh, shout out to Noble Murloc. Great job going 6 and 1, making the top 8 in 2nd place with your Goblin Rally
Ooh.
the Ancestors deck. That's some
Very
cracked stuff. I love
very
it.
unexpected, but I love it. I'm gonna be checking that list out.
Mhm. And then we
on
have, of
par
course go ahead.
on par for Murloc.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And outside of that, there's a Gruul Boats list. There's a Yorion Blue White Control list. There's Is It Creativity or Temur Creativity? There's a Sakdos list. A mono red list is spicy. Love to see that. And of course, Zero squeaks in at 8th place on Breakers with Devo. So he gets to go up
Awesome.
against Azorius Control, Lotus Field combo. That should be a weird, weird top 8 matchup for him.
Love to see it. Love to see it. So lots of I know earlier today some of the coverage was talking and saying that Explorer's gotten a little stale. It is what it is, and it's not moving very much. But I think there's a lot of shifts between the decks. There's some innovation going on between the decks. I know that we're kind of like moving inevitably towards more control because as the meta gets more and more figured out and things don't change, control starts to take over inevitably because it knows exactly what to expect. And in that situation, it tends to get strong, in my opinion. But I'm still excited for Explorer turning into Pioneer. One of the things that I wanted to point our attention to was this. We'll touch on this briefly because we're more about competitive Magic here. But I'm curious. I don't know if you guys played any of the 2010s video games, and even before that, there were some in the 90s on computer and in the 2000s on different systems. But Magic Wizards released several single player like Magic the Gathering games where you had this avatar and you went through this story and you built your deck as you went through the story. Uh, I when I heard that they're trying to create some kind of onboarding experience for people who don't want to jump into competitive, who are too intimidated by all the spikes out there, that they're going to create some kind of single player experience. What's your speculation on this? Because I that's what I thought of was some of the other games like on Xbox and 360 that were like single player Magic the Gathering games. Have either of you played any of these?
I've played all the I basically played all of them. So Chandelar being the first, um, for Windows 98 or 95 or whatever. I played Chandelar, even the updates or whatnot. Duel of the Planeswalkers and some of the ones in the early 2000s or whatnot. But um, my experience with them is different than most others because I came up in Magic as a competitor, and I've been competing in multiple things at once since I was like 4 years old. So competing is something I always do. It's not something that you know I'm just like I need to do PVE or not be against PvP or be against person. WoW was like that a little bit where I didn't like the idea of just somebody coming up. I'm like level 29, I'm a little twink, like specifically for that environment.
See, I'm
And
the
then some
opposite.
level and then some level 80 comes up and just snags me. And I'm just like, bro, like I'm over here just a level 29, just doing my thing, keeping my stuff, and you over here just doing your thing, bro. Like leave me
See,
alone. And
I
it
used to
happened.
farm those people. I would sit there and wait for those bullies to come out, and I would jump those people at level 80. That's what I would like to do. But more to the point, I suspect that that's the route that they're going. My question for both of you is, do you think that this is going to create a good experience for new players? Do you think this is going to be enough basically to kind of like build their deck and get them to a point where they can at least like compete at a base level on the ladder? What do you think? MTG ladder is not as hard as people think. Making Mythic isn't as big of a deal. It's been said. So, do you think this is a good onboarding system for getting them to competitive?
I just what's the point of the play queue that's not ranked then? And what's the point of Spark? But
I
I
think
I just don't understand.
they have to fix that algorithm, right? Because I think it's fixed where when you do that, you basically play like a similar archetype. Like they match you with the exact same color wheel archetype and everything. Isn't that right?
Well, I don't correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm pretty sure that the way the play queue works is it matches you based on what cards you have, not so much like, what you're playing or what the color spectrum is. So like for example, if you are in the play queue and you're playing, uh, uh just a random starter deck that they give you, but you use like, 4 or 8 rare wild cards and like some mythics, but like you didn't have that many, then it'll match you or it should match you to something similar. And if you're a spike as or a whale or however you want to call it, where you basically have everything like me and everybody else in here, if you go in the play queue with a standard deck, then you're gonna play against somebody who has the same thing. So I don't understand. I just have to wait and see what they mean by when they're like, well, we're gonna do something where they don't have to play against a player. And like AI is a thing, but Magic is one of those complicated games where if you figure out how to do the AI where you can do this, I think this is what they're trying to do is do this for the people like that don't compete. But imagine if they get that to work and they basically have an engine for Magic.
A training dummy would be nice, in my opinion. Even I would kind of use it sometimes just to generate hands and see what turn I can get a combo to go off, for instance. I don't know. I like the
I'm interested
idea.
to hear what Darkstream has to say about this because this is what
Do
I'm
you,
saying. I'm
yeah,
like
do you have
excited
any
at the same
opinion at
time.
all on this? This is something I don't think you would, but do you?
When it comes to an onboarding scenario, I'm all for them exploring new options. I've never touched any of those games. I've always just played BO3 competitive Magic since I was like 10. So I, doesn't don't really have a whole lot to offer on it, but I like that they're trying new avenues to get people interested and onboard them slowly into competitive. Even if those avenues aren't amazing, they used to have great ones. They used to have JSS, and that was an amazing way to get kids to be able to rock because you only had to play against kids your own age. So it was a really good onboarding experience where you didn't get blown out by all the older spikes. And in fact, the older spikes usually were super nice about it, would hand you decks so you could beat the other kids. They'd be like, hey,
Nice.
here's $1,000 deck, give it back to me in 4 hours after you beat everybody. Have fun, kid. Like it was wild. So
That yeah, we talk about that, and I think it's a great idea. Um, I like it.
But,
I w-
if they're trying other things, I think it's a good thing that they're trying stuff. I don't know if it'll succeed, but I think it's important they keep trying to find ways to build people in this game.
I agree. I think the sentiment is strong there. I think we would all agree in that. Any kind of attention to getting younger players would be good. Any kind of attention to getting new players in here would be good. And that's one of the reasons I like Universes Beyond as well. I know there were a lot of announcements recently at Gen Con as well regarding Universes Beyond and the set release schedule. So let's transition to talking about that real quick. Uh, Really quickly, I'm just gonna run down what we have. I know we have Wilds of Eldraine coming up. I don't know what predictions are gonna come true there. I've predicted that red green is gonna be stronger in standard, but I mean that's just a lore prediction. I have no idea. I really don't. Like from a design perspective, I don't know what they're doing. I don't really know what the precedent is. We'll see what the health of standard is in September when that comes out. But I think there's enough shifts in the meta week to week. I mean, we release videos every week where things change, as evidence to speak to that. I think standard is healthy, standard is strong. There's a lot of decks that are still viable. I was just on ladder playing against Lesnia Toxic, and I think we did a sideboard guide on that video, our sideboard guide video on that deck like 2 or 3 months ago, and people are still running with that. So I don't know. If that deck is viable, a lot of decks are. But Wilds of
Yeah,
Eldraine, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that lose a few on the ladder and then just start getting on Twitter or whatever the fuck they want to call it these days, X, and they just bitch up a storm like, "Oh my god, this like format sucks and you can't win unless you play XYZ." And I'm sitting here going, "Okay, look at the pizza box Explorer top 8, 8 different archetypes. You can't tell me Explorer is monolithic when there's literally 8 different archetypes that are going 6 and 1 or better at a 127 person tournament online." I just,
Yeah,
the argument doesn't make sense. And standard, I'm seeing at least 3, if not 4, archetypes at tier 1 status. And I do think that you see these same lists, like these exact same 75. And what that tells me is a lot of people are not putting in a ton of testing time, which makes sense because there aren't necessarily reasons for them to put in that much time. But at the same time, if they're not going to put in that amount of time to actually test and move the format forward, you're going to see stagnation. If people aren't taking the time to evolve an archetype, you see a lot of stagnation. For instance, if you look at Green Devotion, that made the top 8 Darth Zeros list, you're going to notice that there's only 4 Llanowar elves, and the Elvish Mystics are gone. It's 4 Paradise Druid. And that's based on a shitload of testing we did against Sakdos and a few other things, and realized we needed hexproof at the 2 drop to ensure the Karn on 4, or for turn 3. And like it's stuff like that. It's the little things that evolve these archetypes and make them more interesting. So it's really, does the player base want to do the work or not? I do think these meta games are open enough to evolve further.
thank you. I think so too. I think some of our content sort of relies on that lately, and it speaks to that, to the fact that they have adapted and evolved week after week. Very much so. Uh, Talking about the release schedule, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I just want to comment real quick that I like this concept of integrating these alternate universes beyond cards into the set as alternate artworks, kind of like they did with Innistrad, as opposed to artificially kind of just like making it its own thing and not executing it well. That being said, I think Lord of the Rings was executed very well, and I'm excited to see another beloved franchise, Final Fantasy, be executed the same way, having its own sort of visual concept, design concept, respective of what the other sets are trying to do. And so I'm excited for that. What I'm also excited for is this announcement about Modern Horizons 3. Talk to us, John Ramos, really quick. What clarify what the Modern Horizons 3 announcement is? Is any of it coming over to Arena? What's going on with it? What's the deal?
So Modern Horizons, for those who don't know, is a cross between a reprint master set while also porting over modern level power without having it go through standard or pioneer. So they used to do modern masters, which was purely a draftable reprint set where they reprinted, fetches, goyfs, all the cards that were highly expensive but very hard to get. And so the reprints were supposed to drop the values of them to kind of like give it a little bit of a barrier of entry, kind of like relief. But usually what happens is somewhere down the line cards that aren't reprinted soak up the value that otherwise wouldn't be if they didn't reprint the cards. That being said, Modern Horizons is also Power Injunction, where you take the existing card pool and you add more to it. So it's roughly about 250 to 300 cards. And Modern Horizons 1 had a lot of power. And then, not to be outdone, Modern Horizons 2 added even more power. And basically, they released these on a 2 to 3 year schedule. And this one is coming to Arena. So it's roughly 250 cards. They didn't specify how much or how big it was, but it's coming to Arena also. Now, like I said before, they specifically said that it wasn't going to uh, announce, or they weren't going to try to put Modern onto Arena, but I think that's something that they have to say. But the Modern Horizons 3 is just going to add more power to Modern, but also to Historic, where they have some Modern level power cards in the set, or excuse me, in the format, like Esper Sentinel and the Lord of the Rings cards are sort of like a Modern Horizons S type deal, except not all the cards were, that type of power level, but some of them are very, very good. And the majority of the Modern Horizons cards that have made their waves into Historic uh, also see a lot of play, like Esper Sentinel and Unholy Heat that got nerfed, and many other cards that have seen play over the time. So this basically just moves the format forward in a way that uh, we'll see how it feels with Modern being a major Modern set fully being on Arena, as opposed to when they did the Historic Horizons and Jumpstart, where they only gave like certain other cards. And the way that they're doing it now is by major sets. And they're, as an aside, they're not going to be doing master sets after Pioneer Masters and Ravnica Remaster and Remaster sets anymore, or at least they're toning it down.
Makes sense. I like the idea of them experimenting because they need to do something about the historic numbers. Not many people are honestly playing historic month to month if you look at the numbers, and they need to raise some interest if those cards are coming that way. I want to go over some of the planes they're going to be visiting to round out this podcast episode. And you guys tell me if any of these excite you about just, if it's lore, if it's mechanics, power level of sets you remember from these planes. Here's where we're going back to. Obviously, Eldraine, Ixalan. We're going to Hollow Earth Ixalan. I don't know what that means, if that's going to change things dynamically for that. Still dinosaurs and vampires, I guess. We're going to Thunder Junction in 2024, a Wild West kind of set. We're going to Bloomburrow, a sort of animals walking around in human clothing kind of fantasy set. Duskmourn, a House of Horror. I'm not sure if the whole plane is a house or what's going on with that, but it's a House of Horror. Innistrad Remastered, and Tarkir, and a space set. Lorwyn. That one interests me. Lorwyn. Strixhaven, and I think that's it. Oh yeah, Arcavios, which is Strixhaven. So Darth Rictus the Dark Stream, do you have any fond memories of any of those planes in particular?
I mean, Innistrad's always going to be near and dear to the heart because Gristlebrand. So I guess that
Oh
one, yeah.
yeah. John
But
Ramos, what you got?
Uh, Innistrad always, Snapcaster Mage, but Ravnica Remastered, unfortunately not coming to Arena, but Ravnica is specifically near dear because that's a major set that I played a crap ton. Original Ravnica with Solar Flare, the Tron lands were legal, 5 color or 2 color is it? Tron decks, as Ravnica's original Ravnica is a big deal.
Shout out to Gruul Charm because I'm going to say Ixalan. I feel like Gruul colors are going to be strong. Dinos are going to be strong. I know Gruul Charm's excited about that. Huge community member. But also, I'm excited to see the Mesoamerican inspired gods be a thing and see how powerful those cards are on Ixalan. But secondarily, the Wild West set. I mean, me and my buddies used to talk in high school about what that would be like if like guns and sharpshooting and all that were mechanics in Magic. I don't know. It's just something we fantasized about. And I feel like I look back fondly on those days with them finally announcing this and the fact that it's going to be like a place where villains gather. So I'm interested to see who's included in that. But thank you guys for your input. Darth Rictus the Dark Stream, John Ramos MTG, y'all breaking it down for us and our audience so that we understand these announcements because they kind of just threw a lot of these announcements at us all at once in that one video and then just kind of left us to sort it out. So thank you for helping everybody sort it out today. And I guess that's it. Episode 16, MTG Rebellion. The gang talks. The MTG30 GenCon announcements. All right, from all of us at the Rebellion, don't forget, untap, upkeep, resist.
Resist.
Let's go. Good night, everybody.